Hello guys, Sida Shen here. Today we're going to talk about how to use StarRocks as an open data Lakehouse query engine. With the demo that features StarRocks as the query engine, Apache Iceberg as the open table format, and MinIO as the underlying object storage. Instead of using StarRocks as a data warehouse where you would persist all of the data within it, you can use it as an open data lakehouse query engine and get amazing performance as well. Its catalog connector framework is natively integrated with open data lake systems such as Delta Lake, Apache Iceberg, and Apache Hudi. You can directly query data stored in those open data lake systems and get data warehouse like performance. StarRocks execution layer is completely written in C++, so it's really easy to take full advantage of all of the SIMD optimizations. And it has a mature caching framework that's based on both memory and disk that's specifically designed to accelerate open data lake queries. And that does two things. First, it minimizes the I/O cost of actually fetching the data from external storage, and also it overcomes the slow and unpredictable performance of some open data lake systems. Has an MPP architecture as well, which means that it does all of the data shuffling in memory. Actually, StarRocks can perform the entire query in memory, which is really optimized for low latency, high concurrency, customer-facing like workloads. With its performance, there is no need to copy even the most demanding workloads to a data warehouse purely for query acceleration reasons, and keep your single source of truth data on your data lake and data lake house at all time. Fast, but how fast? StarRocks is 5.5 times faster than Trino on the TBCDS 1 terabyte benchmark test. And this benchmark test, the query set is pretty complex, with a lot of joins and high cardinality aggregations, like those more complex ad hoc queries see in production systems. Now we're gonna walk through the demo and see what we're gonna do. So first, we're gonna use Docker Compose to bring up all of the services, containers, and you're gonna be able to run this entire demo on your local machine on your laptop. So we're gonna have StarRocks as a compute layer, Apache Iceberg as a table format, MinIO as the object storage to persist the data. We're gonna have a Parquet file which we're gonna ingest into MinIO, which is managed by an Iceberg table with PySpark. And we're gonna connect StarRocks with Iceberg with its catalog connector framework and query the data that is stored in MinIO directly. All right, now let's get started with the demo. Now we're in my command line interface, and this is where we're gonna carry out the entire demo. Here are two files we're gonna need for this demo. So first is a Docker Compose file. We're gonna use this to deploy all the services, should bring up all of the containers we're gonna need, right? And also a data file. This data file is gonna be ingested into Apache Iceberg, and then get queried by StarRocks directly, right? This is in Parquet format. So in the meantime, let's bring up all of the containers now. And this is going to take 30 seconds, around 30 seconds for everything to be ready. So now let's go over what containers we have. So for StarRocks FE and StarRocks B, those are the StarRocks processes. So FE is in charge of metadata management, query planning, and this is where the StarRocks optimizer, cost-based optimizer is. And StarRocks B is, B's backends are like the muscles of the StarRocks cluster is in charge of actually scanning the data and executing the queries, right? And this Apache, this Iceberg REST container provides the Apache Iceberg catalog, which acts like the metadata service. And the Spark Iceberg container provides an Apache Spark environment to run PySpark in, right? We're going to use PySpark to do the data ingestion into Apache Iceberg. And MinIO is going to be the underlying object storage where we're going to persist the ingested Parquet files, right? And this is local, but on the cloud, this would be like, for example, AWS. This will be AWS S3, right? And now let's take a look at whether everything is ready. Looks like it is. So the first thing we're gonna do is to copy this data file into the Spark environment, right? To do the data ingestion into Iceberg. And now this is copied, and now we can enter the Spark Iceberg container, right? And start the PySpark. Now we're in Python. Now we're in Spark, okay? So first what we're gonna do is we're going to read the Parquet file, right, into a PySpark data frame. And now that's done, let's take a look at the schema of that data frame, which is created. So now we can see all of the columns, and let's take a peek at the data. It's gonna take some time. Okay, so here is a snippet of the data we're gonna use. And then let's write this data into this database, NYC database, and this table. Okay, so that's done. Now we can exit PySpark, and we now have the data written into Apache Iceberg, right? And the next thing we're gonna do is to connect to StarRocks, and enter StarRocks and connect StarRocks with Apache Iceberg, and to actually query the data, right? And to connect to StarRocks, you can use any MySQL client. Here I'm going to use the MySQL client provided with the StarRocks FE container. But if you have your own MySQL client, feel free to use that as well. Now we're in. So to connect StarRocks with Apache Iceberg, we're going to use the StarRocks external catalog feature, right? We're going to use an Iceberg catalog to do this. Let's do it. And now we set our catalog to the Iceberg catalog we just created, right? Now let's show databases and see if we see everything. So here, NYC was the same database we saw with Spark, right? It's in Apache Iceberg. And now let's use this database and actually do some querying, right? This NYC database. And now let's run some query. Bam, we get the result. And now let's go into the MinIO console and see what we actually did. All right, so this is a MinIO console. So this username and password are in the Docker Compose YAML file. So if you use the Docker Compose file out of box, it's going to be admin and password. So you don't have to go back and take another look. Okay, so here is a warehouse. You can see the NYC database, green taxi dataset, and here is a Parquet data file that we ingested into Apache Iceberg. And these are the metadata, right? So this is about it. And this demo is actually available on the StarRocks documentation, so you can give it a try yourself, right? So this is the StarRocks documentation. You go to QuickStart, and then go to Apache Iceberg Lakehouse QuickStart, and this has all of the relative information you need to get started with a lot more explanations. So thank you for tuning in, and see you guys again next time.